Hello, my wonderful, beautiful friends, guys. Welcome back to our entitled people, where people truly believe the world revolves around them and no one else matters. And in today's episode, hotel workers are sharing their most entitled Karen encounters ever. People are getting fired, guests are making wild demands, and one OP tells a story about a sneaky husband. It's gonna be a good one today. So grab a drink, relax, and get ready to shake your heads. And as always, this voice should only be on the Dark Fluff YouTube channel. Let's dive in. I worked at a high-end hotel over a decade ago, and I thought I'd share my short conversation with an entitled ritzy woman. I still think back and laugh at how absurd she was. An older couple from Florida, maybe in their 70s, are checking in. And that's when the woman says, "Gosh, these trees look absolutely awful without leaves on them." I respond, "You just missed our peak fall season. It was beautiful, but now most have lost their leaves for this season." And this is when the woman responds, "Well, it's horrible. It looks depressing. Do something about it." I respond, "Yes, I can imagine that winters in the north can be a bit dismal compared to Florida. I don't think there's..." The woman then interrupts me and she says, "I knew it was gonna be cold. I expected the cold. I'm not stupid. But the trees, are all the trees going to be like this?" I tell her most trees in our region are deciduous and they lose their leaves for the season, other than the evergreens. She then says, "But the ones you have out front, shouldn't they be maintained? I'd expect nothing less with a higher-end hotel." Now, for reference, the trees in the front of the property are flowering crabapple trees. I tell the woman, "I guess you could say that. They're absolutely stunning in the spring, covered with flowers." She then says to me, "Well, why just leave them there during the winter when they look so horrible?" Hearing that, I kind of give her a blank look, as I wasn't quite sure what she was inferring. She then goes on to say, "Can't you remove them? I really think you should have them removed. They look awful. It's upsetting. If they're good for the spring, just plant new ones in the spring. Why keep these ones when they're done blooming?" Me, not even knowing how to respond to the fact that this woman just told me that we should remove our trees and replant new ones every year, say, "Oh, well, those are full-grown trees, ma'am. We can't just pluck them out of the ground every year and replant them." She then says, "Well, is there a manager I could talk to about this?" I respond, "I am the only one on site at the moment. The owner will be present in the morning when you check out." The woman then says, "Okay, well, they need to be removed. It's very ugly, just awful. Like, how's anyone supposed to be comfortable staying here when all they see out of their window are things that look dead? Are you sure they actually aren't dead? I mean, they look really dead to me. I think you should get rid of them. I think they're dead. You could probably hire someone to come do that tomorrow, and maybe when we get back to the hotel, I won't have to look at dead things." This is when I tell her, "Well, you're welcome to make your suggestions about them to the owner in the morning. I can leave him a note about your concerns in the meantime if you'd like." Hearing me say that, she gets excited and she says, "You know what? Yes, leave him a note. We'll be gone all morning tomorrow. I hope you can get some pine trees. It'll look so festive, for the holidays. It'll be so much better, you'll see." And with that, they went off to their room, and you can only imagine the conversation the other manager had with her when she found out we can't do something completely ludicrous, such as removing and replacing all our trees for her. Yeah, I've said this so many times, guys. The things that some people say never ceases to amaze me. How about you remove all the trees and put new ones in so my stay can be less depressing? And judging by some comments, there are some people who live in warmer climates who never experience a tree going dormant in the cooler months. And this person comments, "Local plant nurseries where I live have to put up signs to let customers know the deciduous trees are sleeping, not dead. The leaves will come back in the spring. We have a subtropical climate, so 99% of our trees hold their leaves all year. And people get so confused when they see a deciduous tree. At the time, most of the guests at our hotel were businessmen. These guys from this particular company had been staying at our hotel for a while, and I got along very well with a few of them, including the one person I later found out was the owner. One evening, probably around 5 or 6 o'clock, after my managers had left, 3 guys from that company came down and they wanted to buy beers and snacks. The first 2 guys, I sold them their beers and snacks, no problem. The third guy, I can't remember exactly what he said, but it made me mad, and I could tell he was really drunk, so I refused to sell him alcohol. In the state I live in, it's illegal to sell alcohol to intoxicated people, so I used that as my excuse. Well, the guy didn't like this, and he starts screaming at me, calling me every name under the sun, just yelling at me. I of course told him to go back to his room, but the guy wasn't leaving. Luckily, his 2 coworkers were still in the lobby, and they took him out of the lobby. He went back to his room, and it was over, or so I thought. Later on, I get a call from his manager who I knew, asking what had happened. I guess one of his coworkers called and told him what happened. I proceed to explain in detail what really happened, and I told him that he's not allowed in the lobby if he's gonna be drunk and disrespectful. His manager apologized, and he said he'll get him on a new assignment and he'll be leaving later this week. He told me if anything else happens to call him. Alright, sounds good to me. Well, about 30 minutes later, this dude comes back down, yelling at me how his manager called him and is making him leave, and it's all my fault. He then pulls out his phone and he starts recording me on Facebook Live, saying how I won't sell him alcohol because I'm a dumb, racist bitch. He then goes into the shop, and on video, he steals beer from the cooler. He tells me that he's gonna get me fired and starts screaming at me again. Unfortunately, his coworkers weren't in the lobby, so all I could do was tell him to go back to his room. The guy eventually went back to his room. I look up the guest reservation, and I call the number on file for the manager I talked to earlier to tell him what happened. I called and I got the voicemail. I left a voicemail explaining what happened, and he called me back almost immediately. He apologized, and since it was late, he couldn't get him a flight that night to leave, but the guy had a flight first thing in the morning. I then find out that this man I was speaking to was actually the owner of the company. A few days go by, and I get a phone call from the HR team. I explained the situation, and they apologized. I then get a call from their risk management team, and they apologized. The next time I was at work, all the managers, the owner, and employees also came to apologize. The guy ends up getting fired, and every person in the company had to take a harassment class. Honestly, nothing is more satisfying than an entitled, power-tripping idiot getting fired for their actions, right? And just the fact that he recorded himself committing theft and streamed it on the internet sounds terribly stupid. But yeah, I'm happy this jerk's manager took his behavior seriously and made him face the consequences. So I work at a very large, very old beachfront resort. It's technically a motel as there's a drive-up/exterior corridor entry, but for some reason, the word motel just bothers me. Anyways, our varying nightly rate attached to the 16 different room types is by far the lowest in this destination area. With that in mind, you can imagine the unsavory locals we attract and the ill-informed budget traveler. My front desk staff is accustomed to handling all types of crazy, and each deserve a humanitarian award just for making it beyond week 1 of training. This is my favorite and my most recent mind-blower. This one female guest arrives in all of her green-haired glory with a simple shoulder bag and a third-party booked one-night stay. I'll call her GHP, the explanation to follow later. She had a little trouble at check-in when supplying payment for the night, and the required $100 incidental hold. If I remember correctly, GHP gave a sob story to one of our newbies, who eventually caved and accepted said incidental hold in cash. Now, this is a no-no, but I can't seem to get the newbies to grasp the purpose of a required credit card/debit card versus cash, which is a story for another day. Anywho, JHP extends her stay one night at a time. She comes to the front prior to the 11 a.m. checkout, and she forks over a handful of crumbled, discombobulated wad of bills, which is gross, and she has her keys updated. Somewhere along the lines, she updated for 2 nights, and she convinces another newbie that a manager on the prior day said it was totally fine that she uses her cash incidental hold towards an additional night's lodging, which never happened. One morning, when reviewing the high balance folios, one of us figured out the mistake and called the guest to correct the error. She's not happy, but JHP makes her way to the lobby, accompanied by a middle-aged man who absolutely does not belong in the company of JHP under normal circumstances. But who am I to judge? We'll call this unassuming fool middle-aged male. And you'll see why. Read on. So JHP's convinced this middle-aged male that she's desperate. The only reason she's at her hotel resort is because her abusive boyfriend has kicked her out. Without the assistance of this middle-aged man, she would be on the streets. And we can't have that now, can we? So middle-aged male gladly puts down his card to cover the nightly resort fee and the incidental hold. He inserts his card into the chip reader and proudly signs as he's just become the knight in shining armor. His comb-over and his 80s-style woolly worm attached to his upper lip didn't stop this gentleman from puffing up his chest and escorting JHP out of the lobby on his arm. Which I thought, whatever dude, at least I have your digits and your signature. That's my only concern at this point. Fast forward approximately 7 days. I'm approached by a flustered front desk agent who begs me to come to the front and deal with an irate guest who's disputing several $100s in outlet charges. I head to the front and I'm met with the middle-aged male pacing back and forth, hands on his hips. And I say, "Good afternoon, sir. How are you today?" He says, "Not very good. Not very good at all." I respond, "I'm sorry to hear that. How can I help make this a better day for you?" He then says to me, "Well, you can start by explaining to me exactly when you'll be refunding me the hundreds of dollars charged to my credit card." I respond, "Oh, well, I see here that a person staying in the room for which you placed your card as collateral has enjoyed several pounds of shrimp at our oceanfront restaurant. Was there a problem with the food or service, sir?" He then says to me, "Stop with the sir BS. It's doctor. I'm a doctor. So call me doctor." Now, first of all, how in the world was I supposed to know that? Second of all, people who get this upset are almost always academics, never medical doctors. And third, I put on my bitch face at this point. I say to him, "Sir, excuse me, doctor. You placed your card on file for all incidental charges and signed the necessary forms giving permission to the hotel to collect all charges outside of the room and tax to your card." He then says to me, "But you didn't tell me that means unlimited room service." I did not eat shrimp. I wasn't even there. I tell him, "Sorry, sir. Doctor. You didn't give any instructions to restrict the charges to the resort fee only." At this point, I'm interrupted by him throwing his hands up in the air, huffing, puffing, and pacing back and forth. I then say to him, "Doctor, do you know JHP?" He responds, "Yes, I'm not sleeping with her or anything. I'm just helping her out. You guys were gonna kick her out onto the streets. What was she supposed to do when you locked her out? She needs a place to stay. These are tough times for her." I tell him, "Sir, this is a place of business. I'm sorry for her situation, but we're required to collect payment in full and an incidental hold for each guest stay. You willingly put your card on file and you signed for those charges." He then says to me, "Well, who was she with? Was he a younger guy? Were they having fun? Did she look afraid? This is ridiculous, and I'm not paying these charges. Where's your manager? Where's the person in accounting that can refund my money?" The man's completely losing it at this point, throwing a full-blown tantrum. And that's when I say, "Excuse me, doctor, I am that manager and I am that person from accounting and I will not be refunding these charges." to which he says I'm going to call my lawyer. I respond, please do, here's my card. Have them call me directly and I'll happily provide them with the appropriate paperwork, all of which contain your signature and your approval for these charges. The man then had the nerve to say, well, at least give me a key. She won't even let me in the room. Now, do you see what's happening here, friends? It's kind of sad at this point. This middle-aged man has been duped by GHP, which stands for green-haired prostitute, and he needs someone to blame. Not only did she eat pounds and pounds of shrimp with her real-life boyfriend, she tipped the bill twice. I've since spoken to food and beverage, and I asked them to make me aware of all instances where someone's tipped the bill in excess of $50. I proceed to tell the man, your name's not on the reservation or the room. I can't give you a key. I'm sorry. He then goes on to say, I'm gonna leave terrible reviews on every single website I can find. Trust me, terrible reviews. He then heads to the door. I just shout after him, have an excellent day. I then instruct the peanut gallery cackling in the back to note the folio, and under no circumstances is anyone to refund this guy a dime. I ask security to inform GHP that it's time to go. This pleasant exchange with this middle-aged man, combined with the fact that she's been kicked out of the hot tub late night on 2 separate occasions with 2 different gentlemen, convinces me of what's going on here. She didn't put up a fight. She was rather quite pleasant, actually. We might not be a high-class hotel, but it's not a brothel either. So I stick to my guns, and I ask her to pack up her belongings. She politely accepts the marching orders. 10 minutes later, this middle-aged man requires my presence at the front desk. I take a deep breath and I walk back to the front. I think I know what's coming. I say to him, yes, doctor. He then says to me, I want to take care of this calmly and professionally. I don't want this woman out on the streets. I've already paid for the room for 2 more nights. Can't she stay? She's my friend, and she's down on her luck. She's a very sweet girl. I'm not sleeping with her or anything. I'm just helping her out. I tell him, no, you've made it very clear you will not pay, and I can't knowingly add charges to your card after this conversation. He then begs and says, but I paid for it. Can't she stay? Can't we just put the room on here, not unlimited room service? I use this opportunity to get further acceptance of payment responsibility to all the prior charges. I have him sign the credit card authorization and agree in writing to all charges previously posted to the room. I make him sign every single room charge receipt, and I'm triple stacked in my backup, and I dare him to request a charge back. In the end, I let her stay. If he's that much of an idiot to buy her BS, it's not my problem. As I finish the mountain of paperwork I require of him, he proceeds to tell me that he's a published quantum physicist. He rattles off a list of varying degrees and tells me that he's running for president in the next election, which I thought, sure, buddy. By the way, GHP and the man were caught later that night in the hot tub, and they were asked to leave the property for repeated violations. The room was a crap hole when they left, and we hit the man's card for another $300 in cleaning charges. I'm proud to say that I definitely obtained his signature of responsibility for this charge, while the guy ranted on about his quantum theory of a collective consciousness. What a pompous, entitled a-hole. Yeah, totally agreed, and what a tale that was, guys. And the thing is, a lot of people are wondering how it is a doctor fell for such a thing. And to that I say, you can have all the PhDs in the world, but you can still have 0 common sense. And hey, if somebody wants to be that stupid with their wallet, well, we're not paying his credit card bills, are we? So let me tell you about the winner here today. You know they're gonna be trouble when they strut in wearing a shirt proclaiming public landowner. My location is inside a national park, so great, they think they own the place. The guy says to me, I know the county has a burn ban going on right now, but since the lodge is on federal land, it doesn't apply. So I can start a fire on the grass just outside my cabin, right? I respond, you mean the dead grass beside the dead trees coming out of the forest, not even 20 yards from your cabin? The guy responds, yes, I want to start a campfire that I can enjoy from my porch. I tell him, no, you may not. You could have walked 40 yards to the fire pits, but I'm not selling you any firewood now that you've established yourself as a fire risk in the middle of the effing forest. At this point, he says, what? I want to see a manager. I let him know I'm the front desk and gift shop manager, so still no. The same guy then tells me, since it's federal land, I shouldn't have to pay state and county sales tax. Take it off, or get me a manager who can. I tell him, well, I'm still the front desk retail manager and also the only manager on duty right now. And if you look on that wall behind me, you'll note that our business license is from the county, so you do need to pay sales tax because legally, we're required to charge it. He then says, but I'm from Oregon. We don't pay sales tax there. To which I respond, well, you're not in Oregon right now, are you? He then tells me with a smirk on his face, well, Washington State lets businesses waive sales tax for Oregon residents. You don't know that? This is when I ask, do you have a tax-free ID from the US State Department? The guy replies, no. I respond, then no, it'll be $98.73. Will you be paying at the register or charging this to your room? He then says to me, actually, I'm checking out early. I don't care what your stupid policy is. Give me my deposit back. This place is an effing dump in the woods. I want something classy that isn't embarrassing to be seen at. I let him know, well, the cancellation policy I can definitely break for you, sir. I sincerely hope you find a hotel that meets your standards. Now in my mind, I'm thinking there's an agricultural festival, a big bicycle charity ride, a baseball game, and a fishing tournament this week. Nobody's gonna have rooms available, not in this touristy area anyways. But especially this week, there's no rooms to be had, so have fun with that. There isn't a room to be had for probably a 2-hour drive, and I may have forgotten to mention that to him. So anyways, 4 hours later, the guy comes storming back in, demanding to know why his keys aren't working because he wants his room back. I tell him, dude, I sold that room 15 minutes after you left. Now get out before I trespass you. Oh, you're throwing a fit because I'm making you sleep in your car in my parking lot? No, I won't make you do that because it's illegal to sleep in your car inside the national park unless you're in a campsite. It is legal 40 minutes from here, however, so again, get out. So this happened a while ago, and I hope you enjoy. I'd been working as a front desk agent for about a week. It's my first time working at a hotel, so I'm still learning the ropes, even though I'd previously worked as a check-in agent for a cruise line. I'm working the afternoon shift, and things have been pretty slow. A couple of check-ins here and there, but that's about it. It's about 7 p.m. when this lady who we'll call Libby comes in. And after talking things out at the valet, she makes her way over to me. We exchange greetings, and she tells me she'd like to reserve a room, but only for a couple of hours. Obviously, we're not a motel, so I let her know the minimum amount of time that she could reserve a room for would be a full night. After asking what the price would be, which is $240, which is way too much for the kind of hotel I work at, she agrees, and she hands me her credit card. And this is where things get weird. As soon as I ask for her ID to make the reservation, Libby backtracks and she says she doesn't want her name anywhere on the reservation, and she would like to make it under the name of the guy who would be joining her later instead. I just pause for a moment, and after asking her again if she was planning on using the room as well, I tell her that I at least need to put her name into the accompanying list for the room. I reassure her that only the employees would be able to see said list and that no, the guy she was planning to meet would not see it. I would like to make it very clear that throughout this whole interaction, Libby has been super composed, kind, and understanding. At this point, however, I'm thinking that she's here for a one-night stand and she doesn't want the dude to know anything about her because she's probably married or something. Which I can work with, sure, but why not actually get a motel lady? This theory of mine is further solidified when Libby asked me to make a note in the reservation so that if any point we need to address her by name around the dude, we wouldn't call her by her real name, and instead, she gives me a fake name, or so I thought, to address her by. At this point, I'm obviously bewildered, but I'm still trying to be accommodating, and I'm trying really hard not to let it show how much I'm trying to figure out what is going on. We go through the rest of the check-in process, and she even goes as far as showing me a picture of the dude, so I'll know who he is when he comes in. I hand her the key, and she heads to her room. About an hour later, mystery dude walks in, who we'll call Jake. My coworker, who has no clue of anything, ends up checking him in, so I don't really get to see much of Jake. And to be honest, at this point, I still wasn't giving the whole thing much thought other than, that's a bit weird, lol. Not even 30 minutes have passed since Jake went up when Libby comes back down and she hands me both keys. They both received one each. She says, "Thank you," in the most serious yet cordial way and then walks off. Now at this point, multiple thoughts went through my mind as this lady's making her way to the valet. Number 1, that was way too fast, even for a quick meetup. Number 2, why the heck did she give me 2 keys? Where's Jake? And number 3, Libby, please tell me you didn't murder him. Security standing behind me, staring Libby down, probably having the same thought process as I am. My coworker and I are whispering with each other, still trying to figure out what the heck happened because that did not look like a lady who had just had a pleasant romp in the sheets. Cue Jake coming down the stairs and we thought, okay, we can breathe, he's not dead. Now what happened next, we couldn't see because we suddenly had an onslaught of distressed passengers. So I thought I wouldn't find out what the heck actually happened between Libby and Jake. But then, the worker from the valet came over and oh boy did he have some tea to spill. Turns out that Libby had gone as far as asking the valet guy to park her car in a way that the license plate wouldn't be visible. And why would she do that? Because it turns out Jake is Libby's husband. And you might be asking yourself by this point, why has this lady gone through so much trouble to hide anything that might give her identity away from her husband? Well, dear reader, it's because the alias that Libby gave me just so happened to be the name of the girl that Jake was cheating on her with. This woman somehow got her cheating husband to believe that his girlfriend had booked them a sweet, sweet night at the hotel, only for him to show up and find his wife sitting on the bed instead. This badass woman then came back downstairs after probably massacring the heck out of this boy with not a hair out of place and calmly had the valet bring both their cars back, and then patiently waited for Jake to get his sorry ass back to the lobby so she could extend her hand and demand their house keys from him. She then got into her car and she drove away. The only thing that would have made this even better was if Jake's girlfriend had also been there to tear into him as well. I'd like to think she had a part to play in this whole thing, since how else would Libby have managed to trick him into getting to the hotel? And the best part was we overheard him on the phone talking to someone how he was caught, how his life is ruined and she's gonna clean him out. The point is, this woman is all I aspire to be. What a post that was, and you know that Jake probably went ghostly white as soon as he opened that door and saw his wife there. As for the wife cleaning him out and his life being ruined, well, you did that to yourself now, didn't you? But again, amazing post, and like OP said, Libby is one cool badass. And that, my friends, brings us to another end of r/entitled people. Guys, I hope you enjoyed today's stories. If you did, hit that thumbs up. And if you're not subscribed, consider subscribing so you don't miss these crazy, crazy stories. And if you missed the last episode on the channel, it's an r/malicious compliance episode where bad bosses are getting exactly what they deserve. Go check it out if you haven't, and myself and Stevie Boy will see you guys in the next one. We love you.